Good evening, race fans, and welcome to another live presentation of the Dynasty Racing League here on DRL TV. Today, these drivers will try to navigate 55 laps here at the beautiful Sonoma Raceway for the Dynasty Racing League Sonoma Raceway 110, sponsored by Molnar Automotive. Formerly known as Sears Point and Infineon, this road course brings a lot of extra flavor that you don't often see at other venues that we'll visit. Most notably, the 160 feet of total elevation change. Of the road courses that we visit, this is easily the most technical and difficult. Now, once you sprinkle in today's expected California heat, it gives these drivers the perfect recipe for a brutal 110-mile race here. I'm Getty Buckner, and with me, as always, on Tuesdays here is Mr. Martin Wenzel. Now, Martin, given today's conditions and the fact that we bring heavy stock cars with over 800 horsepower, what is the mentality that we can really expect from these drivers heading into a tough road course race here?
Well, I can speak for myself. I'd be taking it easy, just trying to get around this track. I'm looking at the times, and the times seem a lot slower. I can't remember what the times usually are for this track. Maybe I'm thinking of Watkins Glen times, but for some of these guys, it's just getting around the track, and that needs to be the mentality. I think it has to be the same mentality we had going at Canadian Tire in the Indy cars. It's like, just get around the track. If you get around the track, you'll finish good.
I
there's a few guys. There's a few guys like Eric Wolf, Kean Riley Howell. He's showing that he can do something. Joseph Helt, Anthony Burrows. There's a couple guys like those top 5 guys in practice. I think those guys are going to be pushing it. They're going to be pulling away. But there's going to be other guys just trying to get around the track, just trying to stay out of the way, just trying to stay clean and finish this race. And if you stay on the track and you stay clean enough, you should be able to get a top 10 finish at a track like this.
Now, and speaking to what Martin just mentioned, Eric Wolf, a name here, has all of a sudden put his name on top of the practice list where Kean Howell was on. He was on top for a majority of the first 45 minutes here. But, yeah, the fun thing that I love about these road courses is you see who can bring it here. We go to so many ovals here, as this is actually event number 15. So I mean, we've gone to 14 other ovals. You know who can do well at the short tracks. You know who does well at the mile and a half. All of a sudden, we enter a whole different battlefield here, and you're going to see names like I spoke to Kean Howell earlier this week, and he said this is his best opportunity to win because, as you've seen in some of the, the real life stock car racing, they'll kind of bring in what you would call maybe a ringer, or maybe someone who's more, who's better at road course racing in general, like an AJ Allmendinger or something, a Marcus Ambrose. You see those guys just come here and they're able to do what they do and just put on a show. So I'm excited about that aspect. Maybe call on a few other names that we normally wouldn't. If we were at a Charlotte or anywhere else really.
Well, that's something we've never had actually in DRL is substitute drivers. No one's ever actually used a substitute driver. We do have the option of saying, hey, this guy's going to drive for me this race because I can't show up or I suck at this track, but we've never had that actually. So really, it's just going to be different guys. And we even talking about seeing different drivers up there, it hasn't been the case in DRL either. Last year Tommy Bordeaux sort of dominated the road courses, and then with the addition of Eric Wolf and Anthony Burrows later in the season, or coming on later in the season, those guys were good as well at the road courses. It really wasn't a guy coming out of nowhere who wasn't good everywhere suddenly being good at a road course. So
yeah, I mean, now
we'll see. I mean, there might be someone out there because we do have a ton of new drivers this year.
Yeah, and we're going to be watching Kean Howell try to put he has one shot here to put down a fast lap. Hopefully he's able to get it and stay on course here. But, one thing that we've seen in the Indy series, our newest series, that's part of the Dynasty Racing League, you've seen some people come in and do really well at road course racing, not like, when I say names that you wouldn't expect. I don't mean that in any negative way. I mean, just I don't hear Chris Stouffer or Mike Springer talk about their love for road course racing very often. So all of a sudden you see these guys performing really well in an Indy series, as you noted at Canadian Tire. Again, not surprising because they don't have the skill, just not surprising because road course racing isn't something that we talk about all that often. So all of a sudden you have this awareness that there's a lot of skill around us here in this league. So again, today, that part I'm very excited about, and we do have some new drivers too that we didn't see last year at a road course, or maybe who don't participate in the Indy series, such as the driver I'm riding on board with now. But Kean Howell here, who has been fast all week, we'll talk today about some of the competition here, as you noted, the top 5. Obviously, the biggest competition, and I'm sure you can agree, is just the road course itself.
Well, I'm watching Justin Levine, and he popped in really late, so he hasn't really had any practice. At least today, I hope he had some practice. No, he wasn't the one. I think that was Wade and Chad who were talking about just coming here, no practice. But here, this is a course where if you didn't put any practice laps down just before doing your qualifying lap, even just to reacquaint yourself. You might have put in 5 hours earlier in the week, but if you don't just come in and reacquaint yourself with the track, and especially the temps today are 113 degrees on the track right now. And he's already spun out, and he's going on his warm-up lap again, and we're talking about we were talking about off the air, is that there's only 5 minutes for qualifying, and that's only enough time to put down one timed lap. And so if you wipe out on your warm-up lap, and you have to restart, you're cutting into that time that you're going to have for the qual lap. And so I'm watching Justin Levine. He's struggling a little bit, but hopefully he can get down this warm-up lap and then put in a timed lap.
And one of the things we'll talk about a little bit later, of course, is strategy here. Since this is only 110 miles, but this will be a longer race because it's a road course. They're not going at speeds that you would normally see here, 175 miles an hour on a straightaway. They're going 80. They're going 114. Especially as we enter the hairpin, that's really where they get the most speed. But if you don't qualify well here, Martin, it could really mess your whole day up. Because again, this is a road course. Some view this as a special event, kind of almost like, and some drivers might view it as a throwaway event, but it's still a points race at the end of the day. It's worth as many points as any other race would be. So you want to try to maximize your success, and one way to do that, of course, is to qualify well. And if you just don't get it here, you're going to be starting in the back with some of the guys that might not be as experienced as you, or are starting back there maybe on purpose so that they can just stay out of the way. So again, with the limited opportunity to hit pit road, because again, only being 110 miles, we'll probably only see most of these guys pit once. And they'll probably split the race in half here, so it's not like you can make your way back to the front through pit strategy or taking 2 tires here. It's going to be, basically you have the one opportunity here to qualify, and if you don't hit it, it could really affect your race.
Well, should we get do you want to bring in Anthony Burrows right now, or should we wait until we start gridding up?
We'll have to wait here because there are a couple of drivers that were able to get 2 laps in.
Yeah, I just saw Keenan Raleigh Howell's change again. Yep. Yeah, if you get through that warm-up lap pretty decently and you put down 2 good laps, you can get them in. It's really tight, though.
Yeah, and it's funny now, a name that I mentioned, Mike Springer, we obviously know he's fast here. He's fast. He's a fast driver in general, but again, seeing who's going to bring it for the road course races, and some of our newer drivers such as Kean Howell and Eli Hinton, currently inside the top 5 drivers that we really don't know what they can do at any type of track. We've only seen them at Pocono and Michigan, so this is going to be a great opportunity, Martin. I'm really excited for today's race. And
Hinton's teammate, Alec Martinez, down in 9th. He hasn't had too great of showings in the last few races finishing, but he qualifies well. Joseph Helt up there in 10th. Chad Presnall and Thomas Harmon 11th, 12th. And Cy Jackson up from the trucks in 13th, so he had a good qualifying there.
Yeah. Now, again, our pole sitter will be Anthony Burrows, so, of course, if you can bring him in, Martin, we'll speak with Anthony, kind of pick his brain a little bit here about what to expect at Sonoma Raceway. Anthony Burrows, this is the booth. You got a copy, sir?
Yeah, I got you guys.
Well, I was talking to Kean Howell earlier in the before we went live, and he said that he'd kind of seen you out on the track earlier this week. So obviously you've had some practice time with this current setup and everything that iRacing is bringing here. What do you expect, given like the higher than normal track temp at 114 or 113? What kind of race are you looking to run here?
I'm going to be taking it easy, most likely. First little bit of it, his tires are really important. They like to wear out pretty quickly here. So, yeah, I'm just going to try to manage it the best I can. And I'm really just going to try to be there in the end, not push too hard in the beginning. Yeah, just hope I make it in the end.
Now, right now I have the points standings up, 15 races in here. You have 5 wins. Of course, this would be important to keep adding wins so when the playoffs start, it gives you that extra boost, if you will. But other than that, it's just a normal points race here today for you, Anthony. So with the weird strategy involved with road course racing and all that stuff, we look to definitely have a great show, and I know you guys will absolutely provide us with that. But good luck today. And is there anyone you want to give a shout out to before we start the race here?
I just want to say good luck to everyone. Let's have some fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun tonight. Looking forward to it.
Awesome, Anthony. Martin, do you have anything for Mr. Burrows here?
No, just good luck.
All right. Well, you guys
keep like that big win of the season.
Yeah, right. Keep it clean here, Anthony, and have a good race, man.
All right, thank you, guys.
I believe he was do not disturb, wasn't he, Martin?
No, he's race chat. I got him.
Oh, okay.
Oh man, these fireworks going off right next to my window. Easy ones, just those noisemakers.
Now, looking here at the 2018 standings so far, again, Anthony Burrows, Wade Hustad with the winning there at our last week's race winner there. Anthony Burrows with 5 wins. Seeing this as another opportunity again to start that chase off strong. But as this race unfolds, it's going to be 55 laps here, Martin. It's going to be, there's going to be action everywhere. Let's see if we can keep up.
Yep. Because Wade Hustad, Wade Hustad won last week, so he has 2 wins, right?
Yeah, he does have 2 wins. As we are set to circle the hairpin here and get this race under green and head into turn 1, which is going to be very, very treacherous, I imagine.
Yeah, this is going to be the tricky one right here. It's going to be, well, obviously the front, the front stretch, quote-unquote front stretch, too, is pretty tricky once you get on these turns right here, going up on the elevation. He's blind. They're so blind. They're blind turns right here. You just can't see it. And if you don't slow down, you're right up into the sand. And
we got Schwartz sliding. We see these drivers kind of spread out a little bit, but you can already see, even at these low speeds, as soon as these tires warm up a little bit, maybe we won't see as much sliding. But the top 5, even entering the very first turn from the blimp view, you could see these cars going sideways already. Yep. As we enter the chute here, very famous for its visual effects that it adds to race broadcasting. Very, very fun little part of the track here. But this top 5 so far patient. Looking back here, seeing maybe if there's some.
Yeah, Matthew George falls all the way back to the back of the field. He went into the sand out of that first turn and drove through the grass for a while. So he's all the way back into. What's our final position? I believe 28th?
28th is our final position now, looking back at him.
He went from 22nd to 28th there.
Now we're looking at Eric Wolf here, who was one of the fastest in practice here, but he's back in 22nd. Now one of the things that we talked about was not qualifying all that well, even if you're fast. So he's got to carve through 21 cars here as we enter the hairpin and across the start finish line. So he's one of those guys that he maybe just didn't quite get what he wanted there.
Yeah, I didn't notice that Wolf didn't qualify. So yeah, he's gonna have to carve through this field. If anyone can do it, he can do it.
Yeah, no, of course. Now we're going to ride on board with Kean Howell as he chases Anthony Burrows, and you can just see as we enter turn 3, there is a massive amount of elevation change, and you can just hear those tires just searching for grip as they slide all over the place. Taking that right-hander here to the chute where You get those high-speed flybys, I guess, if you will, from that wall there. And then this third sector here, Martin, for Sonoma is the fastest sector, as Mike Lemon has already decided to pit through these S's here. But this is where you're going to see a lot of guys lose their rear end because they're going to be carrying just a little bit too much speed, especially as these guys get some wear on their tires. And still going on board here with Kean Howell, just to give the audience here, you know, a one-lap run here at Sonoma as you enter the most exciting turn in NASCAR, or one of the most exciting, where a lot of passes will be made here and a lot of mistakes will be made, is at that hairpin as you enter, or as we approach the start-finish line there. So seeing what one lap here looks like, Martin, not always the easiest, I guess you will, of trying to look at Mike Lemon's vehicle. It looks like he's already backed out. He might have had some damage or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Trying to backtrack here to Mike Lemon. It doesn't seem like I'm going to get what I want. So
he went off into I don't know. He didn't really
Now
I mean, he just kind of went off into the grass and then backed out. I don't know if he was experiencing connection problems or anything. I mean, he did have trouble putting down a qualifying lap for that reason, but he's still in the session. He's just not in the car. So I don't know.
Again, any amount of things could have happened there as we were running.
Matthew George and Joshua Wakefield into the dirt. I think that's out of what turn? That's the second turn. I should get a little map here of where all my turns are, but
looking at Matthew George,
right before the chute there.
Yeah, right before the chute. That'll be turn 3.
Yeah, turn 3.
Entering the S's here as Matthew George does. He's already had a very eventful 3 laps here as he has sustained significant damage. But that does bring up a good point here as we're watching Wade Hustad. He just put a position on Eli Hinton. They swap positions. Damage here, this is almost like a short track where damage here won't be extremely critical if you get a little bit. Obviously, we've seen race winners here have, you know, a decent amount of damage. So now we're looking back here at Chad Presnell again, just kind of looking through the field. Behind him again, Joseph Held. We've seen Eli Hinton already, and we've ridden with Kean Howell. 3 newer names here to the Dynasty Racing League, so very interesting. The 0-2 of Joseph Held has, I would definitely say he's been impressive in his couple starts with us here at the Dynasty Racing League, with the top, I believe it was the top 3 at Pocono, his first race. So getting some,
him and Hinton were top 3.
Yeah, getting some good vibes from some of these guys for sure. But again, with this road course racing, it seems most people are kind of taking it easy.
Whoa! That was just watching. I just saw Alec Martinez there take that turn through the S's. Kind of went into those cones a little bit.
Yeah,
pylons.
We're gonna see a lot of that.
A little wide.
Now, riding here with in the back of the pack here, Mr. Eric Wolf, as Anthony Burroughs has put 4/10 of a second here on Kean Howell. We're watching Eric Wolf try to make up spots as he is trying to make up a spot here
on Mark Johnson.
On Mark Johnson, 3 wide coming out of there. Mark Johnson already has a decent amount of damage. Eric Wolf does end up thinking better of it.
You're gonna get past Chris James pretty easily there too. Yep.
Now, right now, going back up towards the front, looking at Kean Howell and Anthony Burroughs, those two separated by 0.3 of a second, but also looking back to Mike Springer, 2 seconds back. So these two right now are definitely setting the pace, as the top 5, top 10 has really gotten themselves situated, with the exception of that battle for 10th between Thomas Harmon, Joseph Held. You know, they're really close there, and Chad Presnell. Riding on board with Thomas Harmon now as he is chasing Joseph Held for that 9th spot. One fun thing that we get to watch here, Martin, is the different entry points, the different braking points. There's a multitude of lines you can use here, especially through the S's, whether you want to go slower in the first part to set up the second part, or vice versa. Road course racing brings a lot of dynamic events here.
Yeah, Kia and Raleigh Howell now in the lead.
We will go.
Yeah, I mean, you got all those different braking points, you got the different lines, and that's the one thing that's been very surprising today, and it shows how good these drivers are, is that there hasn't been too much in the way of turning cars or wrecking, and that's where, like at the bottom of the chute, I would think that would happen. You know, in these these sharp corners where you have to hit those brakes and kind of turn. That's usually where it happens in official races, and here it hasn't happened. I mean, you had the one incident with Matthew George and Joshua Wakefield, and that was turn 3 actually up that hill, and you just can't see. But all these turns, all these brake points, and
while we were
been pretty clean.
Yeah, it has been clean so far. And while you were speaking, I did replay the Kean Howell taking that position away from Anthony Burrows in the hairpin. Again, already speaking about how many passes we will see in that hairpin. You could basically set up a camera there, and you'll see probably 80% of the passes on the track will be in that one turn. Lap 6 of 55, you will see a lot of give and take. Lap 50 of 55, you will not see so much. So that is going to be, you know, you've seen Tony Stewart hit Denny Hamlin on the last lap there for a win in the NASCAR series. So opportunities in that hairpin for sure to make some exciting racing late in the race. Now, looking at some of these intervals here, we still have Chad Presnell, Jonathan Schwartz, Thomas Harmon, you know, those guys kind of, you know, duking it out, if you will. But otherwise, again, as we've noted, pretty much single file here. Guys really just trying to get a feel for the track. Sometimes an hour of practice isn't enough. So, you know, we still have many, many laps to go here, many, many miles here. Looking at Chad Presnell, who was part of the Grand National Series yesterday, sponsored by the Northeast Ohio Ghostbusters, as we actually watch him go off course here. He had a great race yesterday, but there's nothing that you can take away from Iowa, where we were, and use here for today's Cup race, which normally they go to the same venue, so certainly very interesting to go from Iowa, which is a short track, to Sears Point. Now we are going to ride along here with Eric Wolf again, as he has moved up from that 25th starting spot. He is probably one of the highest movers of the race so far, as he is now up to 16th. We are going on board with Eric Wolf as he navigates the end of the S's here into the hairpin. And you can see Mark Johnson trying to get Dustin Musil in the hairpin. And it looks like Musil will move up and probably lose 2 positions here. And yep, he certainly will. Now, one thing to keep an eye on with Eric Wolf is he did finally get that win that he was looking for, Martin. But one thing that he needs to keep in mind is, as far as attendance goes, he has to maintain 80% in order to be eligible, and he's just about out of races, Eric Wolf is. So even with that one win, that doesn't guarantee you a playoff spot unless you finish 80, or unless you attend 80% of the scheduled events. Just watching him again ride around with Mark Johnson and Sidarius Jackson in that beautiful 71 car, a name that we isn't normally synonymous with road course success, as you know, some of these guys we're seeing for the first time on a road course. So Cy Jackson hanging tight here on 13th, definitely getting some heat from Mark Johnson and Eric Wolf, though. Watching Mark Johnson try to take another position in the hairpin, as he took a position from Dustin Musil the last time they visited this hairpin. Looking back, you can just see how wiggly and loose these guys get, trying to put 800 plus horsepower to the pavement here, coming from basically a dead stop. Again, that is a battle for 14th and 13th, with Sidarius Jackson behind these guys in 15th now. So Eric Wolf has now passed Mark Johnson and will set his sights on Alec Martinez, the 12th place vehicle.
Yeah, Cy Jackson doing pretty well, just staying clean, maintaining. He's lost a few positions, but not trying to overdrive it at all.
Yeah, mentioning at the top of the broadcast very briefly, a fuel run here, depending on the pace that you're running, anywhere between 38 and 40 laps here, but these guys will not be going that far. As 55 laps, I expect most of these guys will cut it in half. But Martin, we have seen in other races, whether it be actual NASCAR events and stuff, people will do the more aggressive two-pit strategy. That way they can kind of keep their pace of the race up.
Yep.
Very, very risky here because the pit road at Sears Point, or Sonoma rather, it's an easy one to get on, but I mean it wraps all the way around the hairpin, and you don't find that exit until going up the hill in turn 1. So it's a very long pit road here.
Yeah, Matthew George got up into that pavement in turn 4 when coasting way out, so he's going to get lapped by the leaders. And he's just slowly taking his time around these turns now.
Yeah, Matthew George, we're actually going on board, replaying him, trying to enter the chute. But yeah, definitely, he's also a newer driver here in this league, so one of the things that you don't want to do right off the bat is maybe ruffle some feathers. You just want to stay out of the way and run your own race. Now, looking up here at Kean Howell, he has put a second on Anthony Burrows here as they are entering the hairpin. But the pace of the race is slowed a little bit, I guess, as qualifying times, if I remember correctly, were somewhere at least in the sub-120s. Now they're running 122s, so tire wear will be a little bit of a factor here, but not really as much as you would, like as we saw at Iowa in yesterday's broadcast, where they, the fall off after, 10 or 20% of a fuel run was, 2 or 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Now, Martin, one of the things, I'm again, I consider myself a somewhat experienced road racer. I'm not of the caliber of Anthony Burrows and Kean Howell here. I would kind of be more, if I was in this race, I'd maybe be running 15th, 14th. But if you were newer to road course racing, as you started training for Canadian Tire a few weeks ago, when Presnall's actually in the pits as he's entering the pits now, lap 11 of 55. Doesn't appear to have any damage.
I don't know.
But anyway, sorry to interrupt my own self here. When you were training for that at Indy, did you focus on speed or did you focus on comfort?
Yeah, I focused on being comfortable with the track, getting around the track, and the more comfortable you get, then you can start adding a little speed. And it's just that's what practice is. I think people kind of think practice. Some people, I think, just go and they try to drive around as fast as possible over and over and over again, and they just keep going into the dirt or keep running into the wall. And it's like, just get around the track once and then get around the track again and try to go a little faster and try to go a little bit faster. Don't try to go 3 seconds faster in one lap, because it's not going to happen, especially at a road course. But once you get comfortable with it, you can add a little bit more speed. You're like, okay, I can go a little faster through this turn. And that's the tricky thing with Sonoma, because you keep thinking, okay, I got more speed, and then you go into that final turn before the hairpin and you go sliding into the dirt, and you get really frustrated. Or you get through the hairpin a little quicker, and then you try to go through the quote-unquote front stretch across start finish, and somehow you get loose and slam pinball between the two walls, and it's a tricky track. To say the least.
Yeah, we're riding on board with Eli Hinton, and we're listening to his throttle response, and it's very touchy. It's almost it's almost like this is like a dirt track. I mean, you see him sliding Mike Springer ahead of him as everybody is starting to slide now, especially maybe some of these guys that have been battling for position, and maybe they've gotten a little bit more tire wear, a little bit more heat into their tires than they really have wanted at this point. But lap 12 of 55 here, and Martin, again, speaking with you about kind of how you train for this stuff, a lot of these guys will come here, because it is a points race, but with the inexperience of some of these guys, you don't always know how to train. Like, you want to be fast. Of course, you want to compete for that top 5 here at Sonoma, but you also want to finish the race.
Well, I think, I mean, it's the case with almost any track. Obviously, is that one little mistake could end your race, and I think it's a little bit more so with a road course, because a slight mistake and suddenly you're out of control.
Speaking of, let's take a look at Justin Levine as we just saw him lose it in the S's one more time here. We were going to ride on board with him real quick as he's entering the S's here, listening to his throttle response.
Yeah, probably just got a little confident and a little bit too confident, and comes out in front of Wade Hustad. Then Wade Hustad gets loose going through those S's, and he'll fall back now.
Yeah, there's not a lot of room here.
I don't think that was anything to do with Justin Levine. It was just that he kind of started going through those S's as well and kind of got loose and slippery. And those things are tricky. I mean, they seem like, okay, I got this. Uh-oh. Car's gone.
Yeah, Wade Hustad losing definitely. I mean, he was just on the back of
he was running third at that point.
Eli Hinton's bumper. Now running through the field here, we've talked a decent amount about our top 5. Another driver here just outside the top 5 chasing Wade Hustad now as we see him in the frame. Eric Johnson, who, if it wasn't for a little bit of bad luck, he would definitely be one of our leaders in the points. And when I say that, I mean probably in the
he
top.
Is a leader.
I mean, he'd probably be like 1 or 2 instead of in the 3rd place that he's currently in.
Yeah.
And
he's still looking for that win. That's what he needs.
Yep, and taken out at Michigan last week when he was having a steady run. Not taken out. I say that as if it was a vicious battle he was in, and it was an intentional. Just kind of part of a fluke thing there with David Wellborn coming out of pits. If you remember correctly, that was the one caution we had at Michigan yesterday. As we're looking at Justin Levine, just he's like a stunt driver through those S's. But looking at Eric Johnson here, right behind him, though, we were looking at John Theodore in a very healthy 7th position, very minimal damage to his vehicle. And we spoke about him last week and how consistent he's been, and how he's just a breath away from being really a contender in most of these races. And entering the hairpin, he's looking back to Jonathan Schwartz in the 8th position, Joseph Held in the 9th, who we've already talked about. And now Jonathan Schwartz, famous this year for 2 wins that he maybe didn't get, Martin, as again, not to keep ripping the Band-Aid off the wound for Jonathan Schwartz, but speaking at Dover and Kansas, that's 2 other wins he could have entering the chase, or the playoff series.
Well, that's the thing we talk about. Yeah, we talk about Schwartz with those, but those are also 2 races Wade Hustad could have won, because those 2 guys on those final restarts were starting 1-2, both of those races, and both had issues of their own kind.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny because thinking that Wade Hustad only has a win or 2 in this series, because anytime I'm doing a broadcast, or if I'm racing, which I race on Wednesday nights in the truck series, and I broadcast.
He's got a lot of wins.
I broadcast with David on Mondays, and it seems like he's winning every event that we're doing on Mondays and Wednesdays. But here, I know we talked about him, or we talked to him after his win last week about him kind of getting that monkey off his back, but the fact that he only has 2 wins in this series, it is almost surprising considering we see him win week in and week out everywhere else. Now rounding out our top 10 here is Eric Wolf, who's moved up 15 positions. So, as much as you want to say, hey Eric, way to go, you also want to say, hey man.
Oh, John Theodore gets sideways right in front of Joseph Helt, going in the hairpin right between Jonathan Schwartz and Joseph Helt.
All right,
sorry to interrupt there.
No.
John Theodore he was running 7th, and now he's going to fall back to 9th, right in front of Eric Wolf. And he kind of lost it there in the hairpin.
Riding on board, he was just kind of giving Jonathan Schwartz a little bit of space, and you can tell his back tires kind of just lock up, maybe a little bit too much rear brake biased.
Ooh, contact between him and Wolf now in that first turn.
And we are now live with John Theodore, looking back to Eric Wolf, who again might be driving a little bit frustrated as he is looking inside of John Theodore. But again,
I think he just needs to be patient, because he'll get past John Theodore at some point here. But that was, I think, a little too soon to try to get it in that turn. Is that turn 1 on the top of the hill there? I mean, that's probably not the best place to try to pass.
He did end up making a smarter decision and waiting until the chute to pass him. Now Eric Wolf has passed John Theodore, but John Theodore still hanging in the top 10 with the next car behind him being Mark Johnson, 9.5 seconds back. And but it's funny because these positions that we're talking about are 30 seconds behind our race leader. As we look, these guys have been kind of down each other's throats, keeping the pace of that race up. These guys are still 4/10 apart. Now looking at Kean Howell, he does have a little bit of left side damage. We weren't able to catch where that happened at per se, but we're looking at Burrows, really putting the pressure on, which could cause Kean Howell into a mistake. But I'm getting the sense that Kean Howell is a very, a pretty experienced road course racer, especially in these stock cars. So I don't know if he's going to be easily intimidated, especially since he may not know that Anthony Burrows, has been the star of this league here for the past year and some change. And that's the cool thing about getting some fresh blood is if they come in here and they don't know that Wade Hustad and Anthony Burrows are as dominant as they are, they just kind of race them as they would anyone else, and it's fun to see new battles with new people. As I know, today even we've had as many as 2 or 3 people join our league. One of them, a pretty notable racer, in Justin Bolton. So we'll see. I'll probably end up seeing him next week as we will be traveling to Chicagoland.
Oh, there's someone in the hairpin.
Sam Niederhelm.
Locked down. Yeah, Sam Niederhelm. Just kind of sitting there waiting for everyone to get by.
And we're watching him.
Watch out, John Theodore gets by.
we kind of saw when we were going back into replay mode there. It looked like almost like the same thing with John Theodore, where just lost the rear tires there.
Yeah, the rear just came out from him.
Yep. So, again, if someone's parked in that hairpin, that does make things a little dicey as we go back to the battle for the lead
he
here.
started backing out, and John Theodore was probably going, no, because John Theodore is right there. He's on the edge for points. He just has to leapfrog Jordan Gonzalez, David Wellborn, and Daniel Hallis to get in. And with Wellborn and Hallis not racing tonight, and Jordan Gonzalez running towards the rear, John Theodore is a guy I think he's going to sneak in points-wise to the playoffs, barring one of these guys outside the playoffs, but with enough races securing another win.
Well, we have a lot of races left, and then John Theodore, a win would do a lot for him, that is for sure, as he would automatically jump up into the top 16, yep. Assuming that he runs 80%. Again, that's always the little asterisk that we have to add. Again, I'm going to bring up this graphic again. We're looking at these guys, and there's a lot of these guys that are in the top 16. Some of them might have joined a little too late because as we see Mark Johnson, he has the win, so he's technically qualified.
Yeah, he might be a guy. Yeah, he might be a guy that gets bumped out even with that win because when he got that win, he had a chance to do the 80%. But I think he's missed quite a number of races since then, which might disqualify him. So there might be 2 spots up for grabs there.
And, looking at
David Wellborn.
Looking at some of these names, Chad Presnell, as I mentioned earlier, when he parked it, he participated in his race today. He'll get his points, but he is not racing with us right now currently, as he is one of two drivers that have parked it currently. But looking at Brandon Dalton, he's not here today. Aaron James, I thought I saw him.
He's out there.
He's out there for sure, but
he's out there week in, week out. He's out there.
Yeah, and Daniel Hallis, he could potentially drop out. Thomas Harmon, he's very, very close. And then again, we spoke about Mark Johnson as well. David Wellborn is missing his first race today, as he was a little under the weather. And again, speaking to him yesterday in the broadcast, not the biggest fan of this racetrack. Now we do have a little bit.
Going forward, this next season. Hopefully, a lot more of these drivers are able to participate most of the season, because right now you can see a guy like Joshua Wakefield, who has already backed out of this race as well, and usually is a guy that finishes towards the end, back of the pack. Just based on coming every race, he's 10th place in points right now. So
yeah, I mean
that shows you how it's like participation. Sometimes you don't need to finish so great as long as you show up and finish.
Yep, and you know, and that's one of the things you want to award attendance. So it's, you know, there's no reason why if Joshua Wakefield makes it, or, you know, there's no reason he should be disallowed from doing that, even though, you know, his the amount of top 10s he has maybe isn't as many as some of these other drivers.
But it's gonna get harder. Yeah, it's gonna get harder next year with hopefully guys like, you know, Eli Hinton and Joseph Helt, guys who have no shot at making the playoffs now based on that participation requirement, but I think are definitely going to show up week in, week out. They've already shown up, you know, since they've joined. They've come every week, and they're really excited to race. And they're coming even though they have no shot at the playoffs. They're going to keep racing because they like what they see here.
Yeah.
Next year they're gonna take up a few more of those spots, and so guys like Joshua Wakefield and, you know, it's going to be harder to get in on points. It's going to be harder to just show up for races and not do well.
Well, if you include the playoffs, we're still not even halfway through the season yet. So there's still, you know, obviously even more drivers that will probably end up joining as the Dynasty Racing League, especially in the Cup Series, is growing exponentially now. I'm currently, I don't know what you're looking at, Martin. I'm currently looking at the battle between 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th. Basically 1 second separating those 4 positions, but that seems, with exception of the lead, that seems to be really the tightest battle that we have right now. But here in a little bit, Martin, we're gonna be expecting maybe some green flag pit stops, as these guys are probably.
Whoa! Chris James in there pretty hot, and he just avoids those tires. Yeah, he came really hot and wasn't expecting Cy Jackson to be as slow going through there, and that slowed down Musial and everyone. But Cy Jackson, I mean, speaking of participation, Cy Jackson is a guy that he participates almost every race he can participate in. And he's probably getting pretty close to that limit. I mean, the guys who are not part of the Cup Series are limited depending on which series they run lower. Grand National guys, I think, are limited. I think both Trucks and Grand National both limited to 15 races up here in the Cup. So Cy Jackson's probably getting close to that, but he's a guy.
Musial.
Well, and there goes Dustin Musial behind him, just losing. Hanging up. All right, go.
We'll go on board with Musial there and just kind of see. I want to listen to his throttle response. I want to hear what he does the moment he realizes he's about to lose it here. You know, he does an excellent job there with throttle control. He doesn't freak out and grab brake. He doesn't freak out and hit the throttle. He does an excellent job of maintaining the, you know, what little control he might have had of that car now. So, living to fight another day there.
And who just got past him? Chris Stouffer just passed him as well.
Now we're seeing some of these guys that were riding in back. Justin Levine, we saw he had damage. Matthew George has been on pit road for many a moon here, but Jordan Gonzalez, Chris Stouffer sideways as Musial might tag him. Ooh, nope, not quite. That was close. I thought Musial was not going to be able to woe down in time. I thought he was going to T-bone him. But
you just mentioned Justin Levine. It's like there's another guy that I think next year will be a definite playoff driver, you know, but just won't have the participation this year. And I think, and he's been here more races than Mark Johnson. Johnson's simply in that conversation right now because he has that win.
Yeah,
but he might be DQ'd because of participation.
And interestingly enough, both of those guys are teammates, so they kind of came in at the same time. But now,
and they've been involved in a few wrecks together too.
It's been a very active debut, I guess, this season for Mark Johnson and Justin Levine. Now, mentioning that Jordan Gonzalez, one of the guys that kind of near the rear of the field. Lap 23 here. Not surprising to see some of those guys maybe get those fresh tires a little bit sooner. But once you pit here, most of these guys, I imagine, are going to be splitting this race in half. This is going to be, you're going to get your one shot here, your one opportunity to pit, your one opportunity to grab some tires. Some of these guys might wait a little bit longer, so they have the fresher tires at the end. And some of these guys like Jordan, who might be struggling right now.
Aaron James looks like he hit the wall pretty hard coming out of those S's. I was watching the leaders as they went by, and they're right on top of each other. Kean Howell and Anthony Burrows. Burrows trying to sneak on the inside, gets a little slippery. He's got that inside line. He is Oh, it looked like you might have been able to get it, but it was just too loose.
We were trying to grab a replay of Aaron James, but instead we were going to grab a replay of this battle here as they enter the hairpin. Again, this is a replay. Anthony Burrows does take a little peeky peek. He might have got a little bit of wheel spin hitting those rumbles.
Yep.
That's exactly what happened, and you've seen a lot of cars do that. They press on that gas when their tires are still on those rumble strips. Obviously not going to have the same grip as pavement. But again, that's been a... I know we've been looking around here as Joseph Held has just had
Joseph
huge
Held
contact.
Snack the wall too. Yep.
Slide up, and it's funny as we just said it here. We're gonna back up a little bit more here. We're gonna go on board here with Joseph Held. You'll see his rear tires hit that rumble. Hit those rumble strips again. Not gonna have the same grip as pavement.
On that turn, yep.
I mean, these guys are already just a little bit loose, and he tries to gather it, overcorrects it a little bit. Does get some decent damage there. Again, not the type of damage that ends your race here at a Sonoma, because a lot of these cars are going to look like they just got done with 200 laps at Bristol. Aaron James is now pitted finally, but trying to get to this point here before we had all this action show up is some of these guys are going to grab those tires sooner that have been struggling, like the Jordan Gonzalez, and some of these guys like Kean Howell, probably Anthony Burrows, they're going to grab tires maybe a little bit later. That way they are still at a very competitive pace as the race draws to an end here. So I mean, because if you can go 30 laps here, that means your next stint will only be 25 instead of splitting it right down the middle. So you'll have a little bit fresher tires there. And we're still following this action here from these leaders here.
Oh, Burrows is going to sneak on the inside there. And can't complete it again. He's been doing that last few laps, but...
Yeah, he's looking, because this is that point. When we spoke to Burrows, he said he was going to ride it out that first part of the race here. But now it's getting to that point where, pit stops are going to happen soon, and he might want to put a little bit of a gap here. As Eric Wolf has now pitted, we're watching him exit. Anthony Burrows might want to start putting the hammer down just a little bit and start maybe putting a gap between him and Kean Howell, who right now is his only competition. His third place is almost 20 seconds back of these two. Looking here at Eric Wolf as he exits the pits, you almost think, again, you feel bad for Eric Wolf because he's been keeping the same pace as those leaders, but since he had to pass a ton of cars, if there's a caution or something that comes out, Eric Wolf is definitely going to benefit the most out of it, as he's been one of the faster cars, but didn't start with that track position, as you and I mentioned at the beginning of this broadcast. That's going to be important, and it proved that so far that it has been. Looking back here at some of this other, these other battles just outside the top 10, we're looking at, Harmon, Chris James, Chris Stouffer here. Oh, Chris James, where are you going, buddy? That's not where the track is. Let's look back here. Chris James, as somewhere in the S's, he decided to take a different approach here to these S's. Oof, yeah, and you can tell the tire wear is really starting to get to some of these guys, as he just got on the accelerator maybe 60% and had a lot of tailspin there.
Ooh, and Kean Howell's going to take that low line block Anthony Burrows through the hairpin.
Now, as some of these guys back here start pitting, it's curious to see if Kean Howell and Anthony Burrows, when they pit, again, different strategies here. These guys, since they do have such a big gap over Mike Springer in third, they might decide to pit a little later to save grip for the end. Or one thing they can do, as you can see them approaching a big gaggle of lapped cars, is they might decide to pit now. That way they just don't have to deal with those guys at all, because you run a huge risk around lap traffic here, as we've seen Dustin Musil, and we've seen, as there's actually PJ O'Leary right there going off course, as we've seen some of these guys just lose it randomly, so... We are on board with Kean Howell here as he navigates those S's.
Yeah, he's going to be pitting this time, Kean Howell.
So just about perfectly splitting it in half here, as their pace hasn't dropped off significantly. His best lap here, as we bring it up, is a 1:21 flat, and that last time by, even with battling Anthony Burrows, was a 1:23.2. So I guess you really don't.
Going to stay out. Yeah, I mean they're not. I don't think they have to go in right now. Not really worried about Mike Springer. It's just when you feel comfortable coming in and how you want to split the race. Because I mean, what the pit time is probably, you're not going to lose that much time. 20 seconds they still have on Springer. So you know, and they actually opened that gap a little bit. They were 22 seconds in front of Springer. They'd actually spread that gap.
Wade Hustad deciding to pit now as we watch Jonathan Schwartz stay out through those hairpins. Eli Hinton, Mike Springer, all down pit road here. Watching these guys kind of get off pit road. Kean Howell now.
Cy Jackson looking in his. Yeah, Cy Jackson looking in his rear view mirror as Anthony Burrows is doing everything he can to try to get around this car and put him down a lap.
And that was, that's kind of what I mentioned earlier. Like what, Kean Howell pitted knowing that, he was going to have to approach some of this lap traffic as Anthony Burrows did get by. So if Kean Howell pits now, or he pit a lap ago, as Burrows is now coming in, and he doesn't have to fight that same lap traffic. When these guys come out, Kean Howell actually might have maybe a second advantage because he didn't have to fight Sidarius Jackson right there. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Now, something that these drivers might not know if you're incredibly experienced is you're going to need a lap or two to get some heat in these tires before you start pushing it. So we might see a spin or two as these drivers try to bring these cars back up to race pace. So something to keep an eye on. Again, might see a spin or two. Jonathan Schwartz now pitting. So just about all of our guys that were inside the top 7 there have pitted, Mark Johnson being the exception, Thomas Harmon being another exception inside the top 10.
Yeah, Howell just went cruising by. So it looks like he's going to have about a 2-second gap probably.
Yeah, 2, almost 3. So that might have been the difference between pitting when he saw that he was approaching lap traffic, and pitting when Anthony Burrows did. Now, if you're Anthony Burrows, of course, he doesn't need a driver coach. He doesn't need me saying, hey, just remember, it's a long race. You need to take it easy, but it is a long race, and he does need to take it easy because I don't want him to get too excited and see that he lost as much time as he did to Kean Howell, who, again, is a very competitive racer, as he's probably, I'd say, led most of the laps here today. Looking here at Wade Hustad as he is trying to chase down Eli Hinton. Now looking at these pit stops here, obviously everyone took 4 tires. Pit stop times though, Kean Howell actually had a little bit of a slower time, but again, since he wasn't fighting lap traffic for that last lap, he did come out with an advantage. And looking at a lot of these pit times here, only a few cars deciding to really take the extra time to get damage fixed. As again, cosmetic damage here doesn't really play too much of a factor, as Wade Hustad flies into that hairpin, and you can tell that maybe he wasn't fully aware that his tires need a little bit more heat, as we kind of saw Jonathan Schwartz take it really wide out of that hairpin also, as those guys only had 1 lap on their tires so far. So hopefully these guys slow down just a little bit until they get that heat in there, because you don't want to have an incident happen where maybe it's a solo spin and you lose a lot of time. Now the mover of the race is easily Eric Wolf, starting 25th, almost dead last, and now is going to be knocking on the door for a top 5 finish here, assuming he catches and passes Wade Hustad at some point. So a huge Huge shout out to Eric Wolf for being able to keep it clean. It doesn't look like he has really too much damage here, but again, the importance of track position. It's possible that with a decent qualifying effort, he could have been up there with the leaders instead of having to chase them the whole race so far. Now with Key and Riley Howell here out in front by just a couple seconds and everyone just about pitting, we are going to take a short commercial break. We will be live back here on DRL TV in just a few moments. And welcome back, everyone, to a live presentation of DRL TV, or a live presentation on DRL TV rather, of the Dynasty Racing League. We are currently broadcasting the Molnar series here at Sonoma Raceway. Currently watching Key and Anthony Howell try to maintain that position over Anthony Burrows. Now, just a reminder, as we have time here, I would like to bring up that if you enjoy what DRL TV broadcasts, and if you enjoy watching the Dynasty Racing League, we do 4 live broadcasts each week, just about, pending any bye weeks that we have. So if you're interested in watching more of what we have, just be sure to subscribe there on YouTube. Anytime that we start a broadcast, you'll get a notification, of course, on your smartphone or your PC, anything, whatever you use to view. So again, interested in any DRL TV broadcast going forward, just press subscribe there, and you'll be able to join us anytime we broadcast, which is normally Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and now Thursday, as the Indy Series has committed to being broadcasted each week. Another quick note is that if you have any interest in sponsoring one single race, maybe bringing a cause of yours to the attention of others, as we do get several hundred viewers each week, or maybe even each race, be sure to reach out through our website or through YouTube. There, our website is www.dynastyracingleague.com. No funny spelling there, just what you would typically spell Dynasty Racing League, and of course that information is in the description here of this live broadcast. Now, Martin, if you're here, this race has unfolded fairly predictably. We have a couple contenders out front with tight racing kind of in the middle of the pack there. A couple of guys have decided to park it. Mr. Chris Stouffer, Justin Levine, who had experienced heavy damage. Chad Presnall, who didn't have much damage to his vehicle, but maybe he's just waving the white flag here at Infineon. But other than that, pretty clean race. Not too many beat-up race cars.
Yeah, I mean, the guys are on the lead lap. They've kept their cars pretty much clean. That's why they're still out there. I'm just gonna go through some of these lead lap cars. I'm just looking through them. Yeah, they're all pretty clean. Maybe a dent here or there, but for the most part, pretty intact. You know, and then the guys that are a couple laps down are struggling. They have a lot of damage. They've gone off course quite a bit, and hence their position. Mm-hmm. And that's what we said at the beginning of the race. That's what I said. It's like if you can keep it on the track, relative with some decent speed, but not go off the track too often, and especially don't get any damage, you're gonna finish well.
Now, for me, the story of the race has been, as we watched, as you were speaking, we were watching Eric Wolf take another position as he caught Wade Hustad, and then now passed him to finally get in the top 5 here. Eli Hinton definitely right there in his sights. The story again, not the greatest qualifying attempt, or maybe a situation where he went off course a little bit during qualifying. Again, we didn't catch it until basically the race started. But you know, he could be fourth, and with Springer just ahead, he could be top 3 here in just a few laps. But again, you kind of wonder, where would Eric Wolf be right now had he started 3rd or 4th, where he might have wanted to, instead of 25th position?
Well, if you look at the standings relative to their qualifying, the top 4, it goes Kean Riley Howell, he started 2nd, Burrows 1st, Springer still in 3rd, Eli Hinton still in 4th, Wade Hustad has dropped a position from 5th, Johnson's still in 7th, Schwartz has dropped a couple to 8th, Theodore has dropped 1 from 8th to 9th, Helt is in 10th still, Mark Johnson has come up from 16th up to 11th, and Alec Martinez, who is up in the top 10 to start in 9th, has dropped back to 12th, and Eric Wolf has gone from 25th to 5th. So most of those guys in the top 10 have been in the top 10 the whole race. They started up there, and with the exception of Alec Martinez falling out, and Eric Wolf going 20 positions up from 25th to 5th. So not a ton of movement on the track, and that goes for most of the drivers today. If you go through, most of the people are basically where they started, with a few exceptions of losing a position here or there. And Eric Wolf climbing the ladder and working his way through the field and showing his skill. This is the champion from last year, from the first season of Dynasty Racing League, when it was just the Cup Series, and he just eked out a championship over Anthony Burrows last year.
Yeah, and as you were speaking about earlier, it's going to be really exciting, especially as we enter next year. Obviously, you don't want to look past this year, as it's not even halfway done yet. But you enter next year as Anthony Burrows and Eric Wolf all of a sudden have some pretty stiff competition. Thinking that maybe some of these other guys, such as Howell or the 0-2 of Joseph Held, if they would have been here since day one, what would the standings look like? And even a Mark Johnson, who joined not as late as these guys, but still later in the season. It's really fun. But yeah, to see Eric Wolf up here again, not having that great qualifying spot, but man, I just can't believe the amount of cars that he's carved through without really sustaining any damage. I don't see. Is there a scratch on his left side? Maybe. He had
on the right side.
On the right side.
One incident with John Theodore, when John Theodore got sideways and then was slowed up, and then coming out of turn 1, turn 2 there on the hill, he kind of got into him, was a little impatient, didn't wait, but then easily got past him later. Mm-hmm. So a little bit of damage, but otherwise, yeah, he's just kind of carved his way through. And now Hinton is proving to be a little bit more difficult. You're starting to get, obviously you're in this top 4, top 5 group, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to pass.
Now, we mentioned earlier, Martin, that tire wear is not a huge factor, but Eric Wolf, because of all the battling that he's done, he did pit 4 laps earlier than some of these leaders. So he might start experiencing some of these handling issues maybe just a little bit sooner than some of these other cars that have kind of, like Eli Hinton, who's basically, any time that we've looked in on him, he's been by himself. He's been running single file, not really any side-by-side side-by-side battle going on here. So Eric Wolf, again, something maybe keep an eye on towards the end of this race. But right now, even with these battles that he's having with Hustad and Hinton, his pace is very similar to that of Kean Howell and Anthony Burrows, who are currently in the first and second position.
Yeah, Hinton ran a 123, and right behind him, Hustad a 123, and then Eric Wolf was a 122.795. So he's got about 0.3 of a second on both those guys. And Eli Hinton gets loose out of that turn 4 through the chute, and now it's going to be side by side through the turn 5 there. Eli Hinton is going to fall all the way back to, I believe that's going to be 6th place now, right? But now, he's right on the bumper at Wade Hustad. He's going to want that position back.
As that battle was unfolding, we were currently watching a replay where John Theodore and Joseph Held got into each other there on the exit of that hairpin, and actually spun John Theodore all the way into that infield. That looked like a case of one driver getting on the gas a little bit sooner than, or one driver not getting in the gas as soon as the other driver was anticipating. So again, I don't think that was really anything intentional. But yeah, looking at Eli Hinton, he has dropped outside the top 5. Eric Wolf, Wade Hustad, chasing down Mike Springer, who put a little bit of a gap between he and Eric Wolf once Eric Wolf had to battle Eli Hinton, but I think Eric Wolf will ultimately end up catching him and probably passing him. But impressive run for Mike Springer, and I think this is a good opportunity as we still have we have a decent amount of laps here. I think this is a good opportunity to maybe run through the field here, Martin, and give some shout outs to some of these drivers that we haven't really been giving a ton of camera time to. Currently looking at Mike Springer, as you noted earlier, started 3rd. Currently running 3rd. A great...
Yeah, he's got that new paint scheme for the last few weeks.
Yep.
Gone from just the basic Reese's car. Now he's got tricks and got the Reese's Puffs, Honey Nut Cheerios. It's all General Mills, right?
Trying to set a Guinness World Book of Records for the most sponsorship of cereal on one vehicle, and I think he broke it. So as we watch him get sideways on.
I think that's all General Mills, but then I was going to say he does have quite a few sponsors because you got like Nikon on there, Charmin, Dollar General, Kami, Kona's, I don't even know what that is, ESPN,
Cocoa Puffs, Betty Crocker.
Pizza Hut, Shell, Puma. I mean, he's got almost every company under the sun on there. But
watching Mike Springer,
I like the General Mills. What is a General Mills car? I mean, he's got I like it. Him and I don't know if that's a new one that just got on Trading Paints or something, because John Mullins also pulled that one out last couple weeks as well. So yeah, staying with the theme. I mean, why not?
Why not? I mean, but more.
He had the Reese's car for most of the season, and now he's got the Reese's Puffs on the back. So
yeah, still sporting the peanut butter, but of course, in addition to many other fruity type, incredibly healthy cereal, might I add, Martin. Definitely promoting the healthier side. But
I eat the Cocoa Chex all the time.
I skip breakfast. I'm one of those losers. But watching Mike Springer navigate through Infineon here has been absolutely terrific. Minimal damage. We've already spoke about Eric Wolf. We've already noted Wade Hustad and Eli Hinton. We're going to come back here 49 seconds behind the lead. Looking here at Eric Johnson now. Very clean race car. It looks like he's definitely one of the guys that decided to say, you know what, I'm gonna take it easy this race. I'm not gonna do anything ridiculous. Come out here, max out whatever points I can, especially coming off of a disastrous finish last week at Michigan.
Yeah.
So it's good to see him up here and kind of just keeping his nose clean, really.
Well, he's 3rd in points, and the issue at this point now in the season is really. And I think I'm going to update the way the point standings look. We're going to kind of start focusing on those bonus points for the playoffs, because we do have a few guys that have separated themselves. Anthony Burrows has 5 wins, He's second in points, but he's got 5 wins. Jonathan Schwartz is way down there in points, not even in the top 16 for points, but he has 3 wins. He's locked in, and he's got quite a few bonus points. I believe he had 5 bonus points, playoff bonus points. And I'll have to make sure for that. I think it's 5 playoff bonus points
with
for
his
each win.
With his
so Burrows already has a So Burrows already has a 25-point lead or a 10-point lead over Jonathan Schwartz, but 25-point lead over anyone without a win who's going to get in the playoffs, and that's where Eric Johnson's at right now. Doesn't have a win, so he's going to be going into the playoffs just at that basic, I believe it's 2,000 point, whatever the reset threshold is. You know, let's just say 0 because it only matters for those guys anyway.
Yeah, no, but, I mean, and you just think about how competitive, how tight it's been up front, and it's funny because you think, as far as wins go, I mean, right now, let's just pretend this is a playoff race, a playoff contender or a championship contender is not even leading it. It's Kean Howell who won't be part of the championship series this year. So there's all these other drivers that are going to be trying to. Ooh, Dustin Musil. We look back at him as he came out of the S's. A bit too much speed there.
Yeah, heavy damage. And his car's got a little damage before, but now he comes out, and that's what I was saying. That turn right there, that turn will get you. Because you think you got it, and then suddenly you're just sideways going into the wall, and you're like, nothing you can do.
But, we talked about Eric Johnson, but the point that I was trying to bring home there is you're already starting behind the 8 ball in a very competitive top 10. We have 10 drivers here. And again, we haven't even seen our newest drivers that have joined, today. So he definitely wants to get a win or two. This race, of course, though, he's doing the right thing. You don't want to ruin your race trying to get these wins that he'll definitely need. But this race, very healthy top 10 here. Now looking back at Jonathan Schwartz, we see the difference between 7th and 8th. Is only it's about 7 seconds, but as we noted earlier, Jonathan Schwartz looking like he came out of a demo derby. Still very competitive here as long as the suspension is intact. Aerodynamics not too important here, but we've spoken about Held and Theodore many times, but now looking back here at Martinez and Thomas Harmon, those guys again. Martinez, one of those newer drivers, teammates with Eli Hinton for Hinton Motorsports. It's good to see those guys come out here and compete on a road course, which, again, there's a couple drivers that decided to skip it today. Ooh, who was that just flew in there? I think that might have been P.J. O'Leary. But, yeah, Thomas Harmon right behind him, another guy that might have issues being eligible for the championship, depending on that 80% threshold that we have currently. But he does have that one crazy win at Texas. So if he is able to make it, that will definitely help.
I think there might be some adjustment to that participation just because there are so many guys right on the bubble who are. I think I'm just playing it out. This will be Harmon's 10th race, and I think you need 21 races to be eligible with that 80%. And there's only 10 races left after this race in the regular season. So a guy like Harmon, Wolf, who's got to win, Mark Johnson definitely. We got 3 guys who got wins who won't make it currently under the 80%. So I think that might be adjusted because the purpose of that participation is just to not have a guy come in, one race before the playoffs, come in, sneak out a win, and then you get in the playoffs and dominate the playoffs. It was more, hey.
Oops, sorry. Just noting that there was a lapped car that kind of cut in front of this battle for the lead here.
Ooh, John Theodore's like, please get out of my way.
But no,
I need all the points I can get.
Yeah. To your point, though, I believe
he's going to go into that.
I believe some adjustment.
Service road.
I believe some adjustment should definitely be made, considering all the movement that we've had, and not just in the Cup Series here either. The Grand National Series is in need of maybe a little bit of TLC in regards, because we've got Luke Short, Salvatore De Janeiro, other drivers that have joined that can definitely
guys who
compete.
have been here. Yeah, and have been here, and I think that's what it is. I think the purpose of it was definitely to be, you can't just show up once in a season, win that one race, and then, now I get to go to the playoffs. But some of these guys who have joined later in the season, and not like joining 2 weeks before the playoffs starts and then sneak out a win, but they've joined and already missed 5 races, and that's all you can miss. You can only miss 5 races. I thought it was more, but really figuring it out, based 80% of the regular season is only 5 races. I think if you go the whole season, yeah, but.
Well, because you think about a whole season and you think of, you know, the fact that it's, what, 30-some races, but then again, you got to remember those final 10 is a completely different thing altogether. Now,
yeah, so I don't know if that's, I think a lot of people were thinking that, are we going by the whole season, 80% of the whole season, so then you can miss 8 regular seasons? I don't know. But I think we'll look at that, and because there's a lot of good drivers right on the cusp there, and I would rather them be in than not, really, because, you know, sure, you have a few guys that. And again, this is not gonna bump out some deserving. This is not gonna bump out guys like Joshua Wakefield or anything like that. It's gonna keep guys in like Thomas Harmon and Eric Wolf, who are already on the standings page that we have here, already considered in, and could fall out because of that participation. I don't think we want to boot people out of the playoff picture because they missed it by 1 race or something. And,
yeah, no. Again,
and not because they were just skipping races because, hey, I'm already in, or I just showed up for 1 race all season and I got in, but then they just started late or they had issues. You know, they can't come every week, but they can come 3 out of 4. I mean, Eric Wolf, I know, is a guy that has said all season that he's a 3 out of 4 races kind of guy. He can't come every week, but he can come most races. And definitely, you can't. I don't think you can have a playoffs without a guy like Eric Wolf out there. I mean, it's just
exactly.
Especially, it's like he's the defending champion, and unless he legitimately misses the playoffs, and that's the thing. If you don't get a win and you don't show up for enough races to get in points wise, there you go. I mean, but you get that win, and I think you're close on those races. And you haven't just done 2 races in the regular season, but you've done as many as you can. 10 or more probably. I think if we look at it, I mean, 26 races. I mean, let's say you do 15 races out of the season. I mean, that seems like a good number actually. Yeah. Considering new drivers coming in later, and again, like I said, next season you might do that and wins. And if we see that guys are getting in because of those wins and they are sneaking by with 10 races only or whatever, then that might bump that number back up as we have more and more competitive drivers, but. You want to get as many people out there on the track who are competing for something at the end of the season.
Yeah, no, and it's, again, the more the merrier. Of course, 16 is a beautiful number as far as drivers that will be eligible for a championship. That's not what we're talking about expanding. It's definitely speaking to just the, who's in and who's out based on different criteria that we have at an ever-changing, Dynasty Racing League isn't even the same league as it was at the beginning of this year with all the additions that we have, the fact that we've actually added a whole new series. Now, we're watching this battle here, and it is just an absolute great one.
Oh, man. Hable, they're just like, stop.
Howell spins.
Howell's going to go sideways. And that was Hable. I think that was all Hable being very slow, and that kind of really changed the whole dynamic between Burrows and Kean Howell, and now Burrows is going to have a good shot at this win. It's going to be going into 7 laps to go, right? 7 or 8. Yeah,
and we were watching on board. We're going to watch this from a few different views here as Howell.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking for Kean Howell.
I mean,
I think he's still going to finich second unless Burrows.
No, of course. Looking at Burrows' view, you see Hebo there, kind of tail whips Howell around actually. Burrow does a great job checking up, but heartbreaking for Howell. How many of these laps has he led?
Yeah, but going into that turn, I just saw, and then we got another Matthew George pulling over to the side to let those 2 guys go by. It's getting a little tricky out here because you do have slow vehicles trying to stay out of the way, and in some cases almost being more in the way by trying to stay out of the way. And I think that was I think what Jeremy Hebel did on that coming out of the chute there was he was so slow. Well, because he saw those leaders coming, he wanted to give room, but it's like I think that kind of messed up, the 10's little path into that turn and got him a little loose and confused.
And now Kean Howell, it's up to Kean Howell now to chew off a 3.4 second lead that Anthony Burrows currently has. But to your point, again, speaking to lap traffic here, the last couple of weeks we've actually had leaders taken out because lap traffic, they're being almost too considerate. We had an issue in the truck series where there was a lapped car that took out one of the guys in the top 5 just because he was going so slow that it was almost impossible to navigate around as we're looking at the...
Mike Lemon. Yeah, Mike Lemon's backwards. Well, he just got off the track, but he was backwards right there in front of Anthony Burrows.
We saw that in the shot there. So I mean,
I
again,
think what needs to be said. Well, there's such a debate with what are lap cars supposed to do, and it's like I think a lap car should keep driving, but drive smart. Pick a lane that you can drive to. Don't go into the wall if you can't drive that wall. And Anthony Burrows gets a little squirrely there out of that front stretch, as I always said. That's always I had an issue I've always had is where you get a little squirrely there. But it's like pick a lane. Go low, go high. Pick which one you can drive and you can safely drive. Then slow down a little bit. Make sure you go a speed that you can make sure you get that turn and do it right. And then do it in advance so that the leader can tell, okay, he's gonna stay high or he's gonna stay low. Don't keep switching, because then the leader's gonna really need you to chime over and he's gonna say, hey, where do you want to go? And then the leader needs to be aware that, hey, okay, if a guy's swerving back and forth, high, low, you need to chime over and say, hey, go high, go low, I'm going to be going here, I'm going to be going there, get out of my way.
Yeah, and that's one part in the broadcast that we don't have an opportunity to show for our fans. I mean, obviously there's a race chat, there's a common channel that all these guys share. They can talk to each other just by the hit of a button here. So there's some, obviously in NASCAR there's some communication between like spotters and things like that. But here you can actually speak to the drivers directly. But we obviously don't broadcast that for a few reasons. One of them being more of the graphic language that can come out in some of these exchanges during the races. But
yeah, Aaron James there kind of getting out of the way, goes into the dirt.
Now, Kean Howell, he's chipped off a little bit of the lead here, but this is the second race in a row where the leader has been affected by lap traffic. As last night at Iowa Speedway, Chad Presnell, who led somewhere around a jillion laps of that Iowa racetrack, ended up losing it with, I can't imagine it was more than 50 to go, because he was racing a competitive lapped car of Clay Phillips, who was still very fast.
Oh yeah, Clay Phillips was.
So it's
Clay Phillips was only, I think that was sixth place. I mean, they were lapping the field there, and so he wasn't a slow car by any means. He was just much slower than the leader, and kind of just. I think it was an impatience by the leader, and that's, again, as the leader, you got to know that, hey, that lapped car, unless he is completely giving way and going high or going low and saying, hey, take it, go, 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 if there's any question, you need to be cautious. Don't cram your nose in there and then get cut off and then go, hey, it's the lap car's fault. Lap car might not see you. So if you don't think the lap car knows you're there, if the lap car is acting kind of strange, chime up, because you do have that. You do have that ability to just say, hey, I'm here, I'm coming, please watch out, please pick a lane, and then I will get around you.
Nice.
And that's, I mean,
contact.
What
is that?
Contact, where is it?
Thomas Harmon and, I can't even...
Oh, yeah.
I can't see who that was. We're gonna go replay here and watch what happened there. What car was that? Actually,
it's the 30. Matthew George again. Matthew George off into the dirt out of that turn and
clips Thomas Harmon,
bouncing off the wall. Clips Harmon's rear end. Yeah.
Goes right in front of Mike Springer, and Springer almost got into the back of Wolf checking up there. So we were watching that battle here on the broadcast, because obviously since the lead battle has. It's not nearly as exciting as it was a couple laps ago. Watching that battle for third, as Eric Wolf was looking to close in on Springer.
Yeah, and Harmon is actually lapped down. Yeah,
so two lapped cars again, throwing a wrench into some of the top 5 finishing results here, possibly. Now looking at
you got one lapped car that's right there. I mean, one lapped car. I mean, Harmon's only lapped down, and then you got Matthew George, who's 34 laps down. So, but. Lapped cars nonetheless getting into each other, and that's not Harmon's fault by any means. I mean, Harmon was just driving.
No, he was just driving. Matthew George having kind of a rough race here at Sears Point, and again with those S's, with the amount of tire wear that we have here on these vehicles, the car can kind of, I mean, it can get out from you at any time it basically chooses. It's not hard to lose control here, considering, as we mentioned at the top of the broadcast,
especially that turn.
The one thing I said, one of the first things I said was I included the words heavy stock car and then 800 plus horsepower. And also I included the fact there's 160 combined feet of elevation changes, so near the end of a tire run here.
Yeah, coming out of that turn there, out of the S's, like that's where you get a lot of speed. That's where you're trying to get almost the most speed on this whole track. And then suddenly you got this turn, and it doesn't look like a turn that should be too hard, but it's flat, and you're going really fast, and it's very slippery. You just go right out into the outside wall, into that sand. And if you come out of the sand and you don't get it corrected, and then you go darting across and smack a wall again.
And one thing that we haven't noted yet is that there's also, I mean, this is a one-groove racetrack, duh, and just the amount of rubber laid down on the exit of that is going to make these loose cars on this hot track that much looser. We're seeing the experienced Kean Howell having really, I mean, he had issues navigating some of these cars, or some of these corners. Obviously, he's probably pushing it fairly hard because he's trying to catch Anthony Burrows. And he is succeeding. He has chopped into that lead just a little bit, but with 3 laps to go, he may not have. But just to finish the point there, Matthew George there could, this race is always going to be changing. It seems like with each lap, it's just almost a different track entirely, with all the rubber set down in this one groove track and the heat and the tire wear. Now with 3 laps to go here, Anthony Burrows does maintain that 2.5-ish gap between he and Kean Howell, who, again, if anyone missed it, was kind of involved in an incident with a lapped car of Jeremy Hebel. Of course, Jeremy Hebel's a very skilled driver. He's actually our points leader in the truck series right now that we run tomorrow night. So obviously he's no scrub, but just it's kind of a case of catching these lap cars at the wrong time, and maybe these lap cars, as we gave several theories there, Martin, might be being just a little bit too cautious trying to give these leaders room, because, I mean, if you're going to run significantly slower to let them by, you might as well just pull off the track entirely, but that didn't happen, and right now the results have been Anthony Burrows getting that lead and has put a 2-second gap on Kean Howell as he was trying to get that car turned back around.
Well, of course, every driver wants to win, and it's heartbreaking for Kean Howell. Now, I don't think Kean Howell, it's going to hurt him too much, again, in the playoff picture, because I don't think no matter what happens to I don't think the participation, any changes are going to really help him if he had won this race.
No, because we would have to turn it down to like 25%, which would involve just about anyone who's raced a race. I mean, I would be playoff eligible.
I think it'd be about 50%. I mean, Kean Howell, I think, could get 50% in here, but it'd be close for him even with 50%. But I don't think it's going to go down that far. But in the spectrum for the other drivers on the track, for guys like Wade Hustad and Jonathan Schwartz, Kean Howell getting bumped out of the lead, and Anthony Burrows winning this race, Burrows now gets another 5 playoff bonus points.
Yeah, no, and we spoke to him, and that's one of the little things here that we mentioned at the top of the broadcast was, hey, you already have 5 wins. Do you need more? And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna take it easy, just try to get another one. And now he is chasing Eli Hinton, which has been a very competitive car here, but some of the slap traffic that he might hit on this final lap, as it looks pretty clear now. It's going to be very competitive, but it looks like Anthony Burrows does have that clean racetrack ahead of him, but as we just heard on his onboard, grip has become an issue. Anything could happen here to these vehicles, but Anthony Burrows definitely in control of his own destiny, as Kean Howell has actually lost space, or has lost time to the leader in the last lap or two, so 2.6 second gap back to second. Again, very dramatic finish here within 10 laps to go. We had Kean Howell, who you could call him the favorite to win the race, even though Anthony Burrows was just behind him. He led most of it. Regardless, a very, very incredible debut by Kean Howell here on these road courses, and we now know that as we enter into the Charlotte, Roval, and Watkins Glen, that there is going to be a new name at the top of these standings, most likely.
Well, and that's another guy that I'm looking forward to. Hopefully he races all next year, because he's going to be a playoff car if he races all next year. Him, Joseph Helt, Eli Hinton, Justin Levine. There's a number of guys. I think there's probably 5 or 6 guys. I mean, we got a stacked group of guys already who are in the playoffs and eligible for the playoffs. And then there's, I think, another 5 or 6 guys that are going to be competing with those guys. And next year, if all these guys come back and they all race all season, it's going to be a dogfight getting into the playoffs. As Anthony Burrows crosses the start finish and has his 6th win of the season.
6th win of the season. As we look in at Anthony Burrows, can finally take a deep breath.
Whoa! What just happened to Eli Hinton there? Do you see Eli Hinton's car just went flying? What did he do? He just drove right into the dirt, hit that corner, just went flying, went over those billboards.
Eli Hinton.
Wow. Well, he said, "Hey, the race is over."
Yeah, right. A little comedic relief there from Eli Hinton
on his roof.
Again, bringing our attention back here to Anthony Burrows. Kean Howell, again, heartbreaking loss, but as you never want to come up with an attaboy for a guy who kind of lost the race on a move that not really of his own doing. You never really want to come up with a reason to be like, hey, but here's something else that could be good. No, he's shown that, especially here at Sears Point, the most difficult road course that we go to, he and Anthony Burrows let it hang out, and it wasn't even close, you guys. Eric Wolf, who did finish 3rd, as we saw him take over that position from Mike Springer with that issue in the hairpin.
All the way up to 3rd.
Eric Wolf all the way up to 3rd, salvaging points here, but he was still 36 seconds behind these two guys. Now, obviously, you want to think what would happen to Eric Wolf if he would have gotten, and we will speak to him here in just a few moments, what would have happened if he would have qualified anywhere else other than 25th position, Martin, but let's sit here and enjoy Anthony Burrows.
All right, who should we bring in first? Should we go 5-4, 3-2-1?
Yeah, let's start with Mr. Hustad here, as Anthony Burrows is just a little too busy. He's going to be a little too busy enjoying these burnouts here. Wade Hustad, you got a copy, sir?
Yeah, I do, guys.
Well, we spoke to you at the end of last week after your win at Michigan, and you said, hey, I might need to practice a little bit. It seems like you did that, as you had a really solid top 5. We're looking at your vehicle right now. It seems as if there's minimal damage. Kind of explain to us how your race went overall, you think.
Well, if you ask me, expectations coming into this race, especially after turning in a couple practice laps and never being here, it went from top 5 to at least kind of surviving and getting through the race. And I think we did that. So I'm going to come off, very happy with what happened tonight. But overall, I don't think I got into anybody and got any damage, but got off the track a couple times. So just kind of kicking myself there. But overall, top 5, I'm not going to complain. That's way better than expected. So.
Now, while you were back there in 5th, Wade, you watched someone that you'll be chasing for the championship gain even more of an advantage as Anthony Burrows ended up taking the victory here. He will have another victory over you as we start the playoffs, assuming, of course, that you obviously have the opportunity to gain more wins, but he does as well. So, kind of losing that you won last week, you got that advantage. But now you lose it again as Burrows takes another victory here as 6th of the season. How does that change your attitude or maybe your aggression as we head to some of these other racetracks coming up?
Well, right now, it's been pretty rough. Over the past couple weeks, we've had, a couple up and down weeks, and I'm probably leading the amount of incidents out of everybody. So we just kind of try to tone that down a little bit. And if we can be conservative and get through these races without damage, I think we'll be in a better position to capitalize and win some of these as we get closer to the chase. Now, I don't really know how the points exactly work for the chase, but I know heading in, I'm going to be a little bit more fine-tuned per se, since, this is my first season in this car. So some of the tracks that we're going to go to, I think I'll be all right at. So it should be a good fight once we get to that first chase race.
Yeah, and of course, obviously, we have a while to go until then, Wade. But again, for as far as today goes, a great top 5 finish coming off of a great victory at Michigan. Next week we go to Chicagoland, a race I'm very excited for. I'm sure, hopefully, you are as well. And is there anyone that you want to give a shout out to, Wade, before we let you go?
Yeah, I just want to say I was watching the standings there, and I just want to shout it out to Kean and Anthony fighting it there. pretty much the whole race. It seemed like they're side by side. But again, the hard charger of the race definitely is Eric Wolf. I think he started towards the back. To end up third, that's pretty damn impressive. So overall, you guys as broadcasters, DRL, the league, JP, everybody that puts this together, I definitely appreciate. And we look forward to Chicagoland. I like that track. Just haven't raced this car yet either, so we'll see what it brings.
Awesome. Wade, well, again, congratulations on your top 5. Congratulations really on keeping it clean. You ran a beautiful race, and we'll see you next week at Chicagoland in the Cup Series, and if you race any more races this week as well, will be brought by DRL TV. So we might see you later this week, but for this series, we will see you at Chicagoland.
Sounds good. I'm going to be cheering on Chad tomorrow at Iowa in the trucks, and hopefully...
Nope. No, you're not. You're gonna be cheering on me and Martin. I think that's what you meant to say. Sorry.
you guys.
Sorry, you misspoke.
Hey, I'll definitely be rooting for you guys too. I'll be in Discord and chatting it up. So.
All right, I'll be there after lap 20 when I probably end up taking myself out. So we'll see you tomorrow.
Don't sell yourself short. Sounds good, Getty.
All right, thanks, Wade.
Yep. Take care.
Mr. Mike Springer, if we can hunt him down. Mike Springer, you got a copy, sir? Mr. Springer? Martin, can you hear me? Just making sure that
I can hear you.
All right. Well, let's put Springer aside here.
He's out of his car right now.
Yeah, Springer could be AFK. Maybe he's not the chatty type. I'm not sure. But we will move up ahead to one of the more intriguing interviews, I'm sure, that we'll have a post-race. Here is Mr. Eric Wolf. Eric Wolf, you got a copy, sir?
Yeah, I do. Go ahead.
Well, we didn't get a chance to cover kind of what happened during qualifying. You didn't get the results that you had probably anticipated, seeing as you were fastest in practice. You were able to climb all the way to third, Eric. You did it in a very clean way. Kind of what happened with qualifying there?
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to hook your tires up coming out of that hairpin. And as I was trying to get out all the speed I could, I lost the car coming around that bend there, the dog leg. And then I tried locked it up, hoping I could get one more lap in. And then I went out, but I forgot how deep I was in the pit, so I sped on pit road and was black flagged. And then I just barely missed the second lap. So that's on me. I just need to be a little bit more disciplined coming to the green. It is what it is.
Obviously, I mean, that's going to be incredibly heartbreaking, Eric, but you know what? You still finished, well within the top 5 here. It was a great points day for you, but as I mentioned in the broadcast, you can't help but wonder what might have happened had you been able to start near the front where I'm sure you expected to start. As you have that one win, but as I spoke to Wade Hustad, you see Anthony get another win and a little bit more of an advantage as we head into the playoffs. What, if at all, how, if at all, does that change your mentality heading into these next couple races here, trying to, get that win and catch back up?
It'll be the same as always. I'm just going to go out there and try to qualify up front for a good starting position, and then try to run the cleanest race I can. Hope I can come away with a couple wins. That's really all I can do at this point.
Awesome. Well, Eric, it's always a pleasure to see you out here, and sorry about your qualifying luck. Obviously, that did affect your race, but you blew through the entire field, and I'm sure you're at least happy that you were able to do that, stay clean, and finish third.
Yeah, coming into this race, I was hoping if I qualified up near the front that I could at least finish top 5, so I'm pretty thrilled with a third-place finish, all things considered.
Awesome. Is there anyone that you want to give a shout-out to, Eric?
Really, everybody that I race with. I mean, so many guys here today. It can be really, heartbreaking whenever you're losing spots, have damage. But guys did a great job staying out of the way, yielding to the guys who are battling for the guys who were going for position. But
all right, Eric.
Yeah, it was good though.
Yeah, no, appreciate you, at least having a good attitude towards maybe not having the greatest qualifying attempt, but still a third-place finish, Eric, and hopefully we see you next week at Chicagoland, buddy.
I'll be missing Chicagoland, but you guys should see me back for maybe New Hampshire.
Awesome, Eric. Thank you.
Yep, later.
Martin, I'm not exactly sure where Eric was, but I'll move Eric to Do Not Disturb. We will bring in Kean Riley Howell here. Kean, heartbreaking loss as you led a majority of that race. You had Anthony Burrows breathing down your neck for most of it, though. If you can calmly walk through that incident that you had with Jeremy Hebel there while you were leading the race.
I was under a lot of pressure from the 62 because I was making dumb mistakes all the way to the point where he got to my rear bumper. And I had turned it on Anthony there before, so I figured I'd make another mistake. And since most lap cars cleared out of the way, I figured he'd be out of the way by then. I figured at worst I'd bounce off his door. And I turned in like he didn't exist, thinking I had all the right of way, and I clearly didn't, and it ended up costing me, no surprise.
Well, I know your goal. I mean, we spoke to you, throughout the week. I know you said this was a great opportunity for you to win. But as a newer driver to this league, you come out here, you get a ton of broadcast time. You're top two the whole race. So obviously you were able to make a point to the rest of these drivers that you're competitive. Obviously you've been competitive on the ovals as well. So is there any other races coming up that you are as excited to race as you were for Sonoma today?
We got a lot. Chicago, Pocono, Indy, Watkins Glen, all those weird tracks like that. I like me some Kentucky. I know that track like the back of my hand. So
awesome.
We're gonna get one this season.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you're in fairly decent spirits, considering that the race, obviously didn't pan out the exact way that you wanted it. But again, a top two finish. You finished second to a guy that has 6 wins in this league, or in this series rather. So maybe something to hang your hat on. But while we have you, before we let you go, is there anyone that you want to give a shout out to?
Anthony himself, man. He raced me clean all night. I talked to him before this. He was joking about my 100 practice laps I did. All the guys back in the Discord server I'm with. We probably got a couple of guys to the marching band out there tonight watching this. I got to thank them for that. But we're going to come out here next week and we're going to do good. Sometime in the future. We'll get one, I know that for sure. It's not going to be water under the bridge. I'm not going to be too upset by it in a few days. So, second place, come out here and make a showing against these guys is good enough for me. I'm a force to be reckoned with, and I hope they know it.
Yeah, no, again, I know the one thing that you can take away from today, besides having an excellent top two finish, is that, hey, you're a new guy here, but it doesn't mean that you don't know how to race. So, definitely, hopefully opened a few eyes to in this race tonight. So, any other shout-outs that you got there, Keem, before we let you go?
The broadcast itself was pretty good, I'm pretty sure. I'll go back and look at it.
Hey, I'll take it. Martin will as well. We no issues feeding my ego. So, again, great race today, Kean. Is there anything that you have from Kean Martin that I maybe forgot to ask?
No, you pretty much covered it. Yeah, that incident and leading most of the race. I mean, it was good. We mentioned you a lot. I mean, talking about how we hope we see you more next year so that you can. You're going to be a playoff driver next year if you show up, from the beginning of the season. I think you're locked in. I mean, you're one of those guys. It's good. It's just good. It's going to get better next year. It's going to be insane next year. The number of drivers we've got who have shown us what they can do just in the last few weeks who have shown up. You and then Eli Hinton was out there. Joseph Helt. I don't think you were driving around them too much because, maybe you're lapping them, but.
I lapped a lot of cars. We got up to 8th place.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're looking forward to seeing what you can do for the rest of the season, and then next year, hopefully, you come back and are competing for a championship.
Yeah, we're going to get one. I'm confident in that.
For sure.
Awesome, Kean. Well, it was great to talk to you today on the broadcast. Hopefully, we are able to have a few more conversations before the season ends. Again, still a lot of season left, so I expect that you'll achieve the goal that you have set for yourself. So have a great rest of the evening there, Kean, and we will look forward to seeing you next week at Chicagoland.
Thank you so much, guys. It's going to be on the broadcast today.
Awesome. Put Kean up there, and we will speak to our race winner, Anthony Burrows. Anthony Burrows, do you have a copy, sir?
Yes, sir.
Well, you get your 6th victory of the season so far, and obviously in fairly dramatic fashion as you were chasing Kean Howell for most of that race. We spoke to you at the beginning. You said you were going to play it cool, just take it easy, make sure you were there at the end. Obviously that worked out perfect for you. Is there any other thing that you could have done had Kean... let me rephrase that. Could you have gotten around Kean Howell had that incident not happened?
I feel like I could have. I feel like I had the speed to. It's really tough to pass here. There aren't really a ton of passing zones. So I was trying to set them up, like the two hairpins. Those were really the only places to pass. But, yeah, I feel like I could have gotten them at some point, but I definitely would have had a tough time doing it. That's for sure.
Well, again, it's just absolutely great to see you come out here, and you get that little bit of extra points when we start the playoffs, which again is many races away, but obviously keep the 6 victories that you have, definitely keep them in mind and let everyone know that they have a point besides just winning races. They help out a lot to start that championship. So, is there anyone that you want to give a shout out to, Anthony?
Yeah, definitely shout out to Kean for all the good racing there. That was a ton of fun. Definitely one of the best races I've had in a while on here. And thank you to everyone else who raced clean during that, got out of the way to let me and Kean race. And yeah, huge shout out to you guys for putting on the broadcast as always, and James, Tater, and everyone that runs this awesome league.
Now, real quick, one thing I just want to ask is, how was lap traffic overall, and was the 114-degree track out there? Like, how did that affect your handling? We saw you guys out there. There was a lot of motion in those cars.
It really affected it. There's already enough wheel spin as it is, and with that track temp, it definitely added a lot more to it, and it put a lot. I don't really know how to phrase it. There's a lot more in the driver's hands, as you'd say. But,
yeah. And obviously, with this being a fixed setup league, that is already the case, and even more so, considering the weather that we had today. Anthony, Martin, is there anything that you have here for Anthony Burrows? I see.
Just another great race. Just adding, I think you get 5 playoff points for every race you won, so you got a 30-point advantage over all the guys that don't have wins. You got twice the number of wins as Jonathan Schwartz right now, so a good setup for going into the playoffs in the next, I believe, 10 races. I mean, we're 10 races away, probably 11, 12 weeks until we get to the playoffs. So going to be another good playoff with Anthony Burrows looking for his first championship. Just got beat out by Eric Wolf last year, but I'm sure he's got a chip on his shoulder and he's going to be trying to get it this year.
Right. Well, Anthony, we hope to see you next week at Chicagoland. Now, after this race, Anthony, if you can personal message me maybe some questions for you, because after 6 victories, man, me and Martin are going to start running out of questions to ask you at the end of these races if you keep finishing first. So, again, that we were speaking with Anthony Burrows there, our race winner. Now, Martin, a great race overall, a quick race. That was a pretty fast way to get through 110 miles here. Of course, 110 very eventful miles. Just to remind everyone, today's race was Sonoma Raceway 110. Again, 114 degrees on that racetrack, which did provide some fun. Yep. I don't know what the actual term is, but some clips, I guess, like little replays and stuff, of people just going completely sideways. Sonoma's, just like the bus stop at Watkins Glen, this is the racetrack where you get all those great still shots of the drivers, on 2 tires and all that stuff. So plenty of great material today that these guys gave us. Is there any other takeaways, Martin, that you have from the Sonoma race?
It was much cleaner than I thought it was going to be. We didn't have any troubles on the start of the race. Everyone got through those. Had a few. Back in the rear of the field, there were a few bumps early on, but otherwise it was very, very clean. I think much cleaner than the start from last year at Sonoma. So And as we talked about, there's so many drivers that this race kind of highlighted that we were able to talk about, and it keeps going. I mean, like we said, we have Kian Riley Howell, who's a new driver this year, and he had a great race. Eric Johnson showed he can drive out there. Eli Hinton. There's so many new drivers, and these are the tracks when you come to a place like Sonoma or Watkins Glen or this new one we're gonna have with the Roval at Charlotte. It really shows who are the guys that can just race any track, and they're always going to be up in that top 10. So it's great racing, fun race to watch.
Yeah, and as a guy who's only I've only been in the league this season. You hear stories, I guess. You hear legend of some of these guys that I've been able to watch them dominate on these ovals, but then you see really where the champions are, because not only are they good at ovals, they're good at road courses as well. This being the most difficult road course in obviously that's my opinion. This being the most difficult road course that we will go to, Charlotte Roval will be interesting. We'll wait. We'll see how that goes. But for today, my biggest takeaway was that Anthony Burrows is still the man to beat. Eric Wolf, really basically just the definition of a championship fight, as he went from 25th all the way to 3rd here in one of the hardest tracks to pass at, as Anthony Burrows actually alluded to. Kian Howell, Mike Springer, Wade Hustad, great runs. Eric Johnson, all the drivers that we mentioned throughout the race. More impressively, Kian Howell, who ended up leading 40 laps of the 55 laps that we had today, until he got into just a little bit of issue with some lap traffic. As he mentioned, it was actually more of he puts a lot of blame on himself there for how he navigated it. So no hurt feelings. Of course, he's going to be bummed out, but a great race overall. It would have been cool to see if Kian could have caught him, but otherwise, a great victory for Anthony Burrows. A great top 5 for the drivers that we already named. Now, this has been the Sonoma Raceway 110, but next week we are going to go back to left-hand turns only, and basically we're going to go to Chicagoland, which is one giant left-hand turn, because there's really not a straight part on this track. So look forward to bringing that with you, Martin Wenzel. That will be live here on DRL TV as always, and that will take place in the sunny state of Illinois, Chicagoland Speedway. Same time, same place here on Tuesdays. Now, again, real quick, if you are interested in watching all the broadcasts that we bring, which is up to 4 a week now, be sure to subscribe here, and you can watch your favorite drivers in the Dynasty Racing League compete each race here as it is brought live. Now, looking at tomorrow's event that will be live, it will be brought to you live by Mr. David Wellborn. Hope that he has gotten a little bit healthier, as yesterday he was under the weather. He will be bringing to you Iowa Speedway with the Winona Road Truck Series. It'll be 143 laps, where, Martin, if you think about it this way, after 2 races, Iowa Speedway here on Wednesday, that is where we're probably most likely going to have our first caution flag of the week as a league. We have not had a caution in 2 races here, so hopefully the trucks can kind of keep that momentum going and put on a great show for these guys tomorrow here. And again, that will be live DRL TV at around 8:15 Central, 9:15 Eastern, assuming David Wellborn is healthy.
Now, yeah, I'm looking forward to Iowa. I feel like I did a lot better in the B cars, the Grand National cars at Iowa. We did, I believe in the official race, we did a whole, 70 green flag laps as well, and I was just able to gain a ton of positions from where I started on those long runs. And I don't know if that's the same thing in the truck. I think in the trucks I go the opposite direction. But hopefully we do have green flag runs and it's not a caution fest.
Yep, me and Martin will be competing in it, and again, it will be broadcasted by Mr. David Wellborn, and let's not forget Taylor Butcher Benjamin, who has been the voice all season of the Winona Road Truck Series, along with some of the other broadcasters that have brought that live broadcast to us on Wednesdays. Now, looking here, this is everyone that is involved here on DRL TV. I always give a little extra special shout out to Martin Wenzel, especially since he's in the booth with us, who creates all the graphics that we have here, and everything that we see. I'll bring up just an example, the Sonoma Raceway 110 graphic. Martin makes that. He puts it all together. He and Jordan Gonzalez do a great job with our software that we have here that helps really add a whole different dimension to these broadcasts. So huge shout out to you two. And then we've got the broadcast team, all the admins. If the drivers have any issues at all, there's a list of drivers also on red here in Discord, the league Discord that we have. If you have any issues at all regarding anything, just message anyone on that list and we will make sure that situation is tended to. As always, if you are watching today's broadcast and you say, you know what, I actually want to join these guys. As far as I know, we're still recruiting. We actually had more drivers join today. Go to our website at www.dynastyracingleague.com, and it's a very easy to navigate website there. You can see where how you contact Mr. Pandolf, who is the owner and also the guy who is in charge of the web there. So again, great race, everyone, by all the drivers. A huge shout out to everyone that showed up. We had a field of 28 drivers, Martin, which is actually a little bit more than I was anticipating. So great turnout here. Great skill by these drivers.
Yep.
So if that's everything we have, again, this has been a live broadcast on DRL TV. We will see you tomorrow when we bring the Winona Road Truck Series. Special thanks to all of our sponsors, Molnar Automotive, Northeast Ohio Ghostbusters, and Winona Road, which I believe is a pretty catchy little country band. So they will be on display tomorrow, as will our drivers, bringing you another live broadcast from Iowa Speedway. I'm Getty Buckner. This is Martin Wenzel, and we will see you next time.
See ya.